Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of the Trainer Talk. Today we're going to be talking about stress management, and how to reduce it, because we live in a world right now where we're constantly under different types of stressors, whether it's work, life, anything. We want to try to help you guys manage that and hopefully overcome it and just reduce it. So I'm going to start out. I found this awesome article just kind of going over understanding what stress actually is. So I'm going to read through this and then we're going to go back and forth and try to help you guys with some different tips on how to overcome it, understand how to signal it so you can actually pick out what is stressing you out, and then it'll help you overcome that certain stressor in your life. So basically, our bodies are hardwired to react to stress in ways meant to protect us, basically in life or death situations. So if you think back a million years ago when we were hunters and gatherers, our ancestors primarily dealt with immediate threats, literally such as a lion, thinking of them as their next meal. So we had a lot of threats to deal with. That signaled these stressors. When the danger passed, we settled back down to our baseline and we went about our business. But in the modern world, we rarely have to deal with any of these immediate attacks, such as from predators. But that doesn't mean that we don't have other dangers or stressors in our life. They're just a lot more subtle. Unfortunately, our body still recognizes these stressors as those immediate threats, and it treats it the same. So basically what happens is our bodies release cortisol, which is our primary stress hormone. That causes a number of changes to our body that help basically protect us and get us ready for any kind of threat that might happen. So it mobilizes energy, increases our heart rate, increases your blood pressure, respiratory rate, muscle tension. That way you're available to act if need be. It also temporarily alters your immune system, your digestive system, and your reproductive system. So it actually suppresses those systems, because they're not useful for immediate danger or survival. So basically it suppresses those systems so that your other systems can operate higher. The problem is, in the short term it's fine, but as in the modern society that we live in, we are constantly being battled with different stressors. So what happens is cortisol is always high. It causes inflammation, focus and decision making, metabolism, all that stuff is always fluctuated, and we experience repeated stress over and over again. And that puts you in a chronic state of stress. So frequent stress impairs the ability to turn that stress response off, resulting in an accumulation of stress hormones that wear and tear on your brain and body. Like I said, it's gonna elevate or decrease your metabolism, those systems that aren't really needed for immediate threats, and it's going to increase those systems like your heart rate, your blood pressure, all that kind of stuff. So even though our bodies are very adaptable and can continue to function under high levels of stress for a long period of time, we do so at the expense of regular functions. So our immune system, digestive system, reproductive system become chronically downregulated, or they don't operate as well as they should because of this chronic stress. Unfortunately, even though it's subtle, it slowly builds over time, and it's often unnoticed until something dramatic happens. We experience a number of uncomfortable symptoms, many of them which don't readily associate with our stress. So there's some common signs that you want to look out for to know if you're overly stressed or if you have that stress overload. So Bethany's going to kind of read through the common signs of stress overload. That way you know what to look for.
So some of the big ones have to do with just our normal day-to-day functions. Like if you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep, like if you end up waking up multiple times through the night to use the bathroom, or if you wake up and you're hungry at night, that's also not a good sign. There's several different things that can be going on at that point. That's just one of the key factors of if you can't stay asleep, or if you wake up feeling really tired, if you go to bed feeling wired and you can't fall asleep, but then wake up feeling super groggy, like you didn't sleep at all, that's a good sign that your cortisol is imbalanced. And then if you have to need coffee to get out of bed, that also kind of stems from that. If you wake up feeling super tired, then and you need that caffeine, that boost to get you going for the day, I mean, like having the habit of coffee is one thing, but actually having the physical need of it is another thing. So kind of being mindful of that, and even like caffeine, if it's in excess, then it's going to be a stressor as well, since it actually raises cortisol. So, you know, you might think you're helping your situation, but it's actually a bad cycle that keeps getting worse. Fatigue, so just being, you know, generally tired throughout the day, having like brain fog, you know, you're having trouble concentrating on work or whatever task you might have, or if you're forgetting stuff a lot. One thing to notice is like if you're trying to think of words to say, but then you can't think of it, or you're like, oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue, like I can't remember what I wanted to say. That's also a sign of stress, overstress. And then being like lightheaded during a workout or just during the day, getting afternoon headaches, or you know, getting headaches from not having caffeine or something like that. That can also be a sign of stress. Wanting to go to sleep around like that 2 to 4 p.m. range, which is kind of common sometimes. At least I know I experienced that, which is like a normal nap time for some people, but a lot of people are still at work, and that's when they just kind of like hit that afternoon wall, which can be a number of different things. End up having like a lot of inflammation with like your joints start to ache, and you know, you just feel like really puffy, like you're holding a lot of water. That's also a definite sign of like inflammation in the body. Could also have like, you know, if you have insulin resistance or some sort of like blood sugar regulation issues, that's also a sign. Having anxiety, like either like in the morning, throughout the day, bedtime, anytime like that, that could be due to like the cortisol being dysregulated and also insulin. So like those two hormones kind of like fluctuate throughout the day, and like if insulin's high, then cortisol is usually low, and then vice versa. If you have like depression or like a lack of motivation, feeling like you're burnt out or like you're just like overwhelmed with everything in life, that's also another sign. Having a low sex drive or having irregular periods or a loss of a period, those are normal sex functions that, you know, should be consistent, and it should be like a clockwork. And if it's not, if it's constantly irregular, if we're not ready to reproduce from lack of sex hormones, from a hormonal standpoint, then like it's just those functions aren't going to be normal, because your body's starting to downregulate all those hormones to compensate for the higher stress levels, and to compensate and say, if we're under attack right now from stress, which is either the lion in, you know, prehistoric days, and then now it's just, you know, a stressful drive to work, like your body still like sees it as a threat, and it's like, well, we shouldn't reproduce right now because we're in danger constantly, so it's not a good time. That's why it kind of downregulates those hormones. And then if you're like have unexplained like weight gain, or like you just can't lose weight despite doing things right, or if you have like a lack of appetite, you have a lot of like bloating and GI distress, that's another factor, because as you had mentioned, with it impairs the immune function, and then also digestive health and like the gut microbiome. Stress really impacts the gut microbiome, since I think like 90% of our hormones are produced in our stomach. And you know, having stress like really influences like how our food is used, and then how our digestion is. So that can be another sign of stress too.
Awesome. You want to go through just the common like sources of stress, or like that list of stressors, that things that can cause stress in your life, basically?
Yeah. Some of the common ones that they have listed are positive or exciting life events. So these are going to be a couple of positive stressors that you don't probably even realize give you stress. A lack of sleep or disrupted sleep, that's one that's big that we always talk about, is how important sleep is, and consistent sleep. Your diet is super important based on your stress. You kind of mentioned like inflammatory response. Like certain foods definitely give you more of an inflammatory response, and then you have certain foods that are actually anti-inflammatory, like blueberries, like acai berries. There's some other ones I can't think of a bunch right now, but there's definitely a lot that are, and those tend to be fried foods and processed foods that tend to cause more stress. Over exercising, that's a big one. We see that all the time working in gyms, like people that they go to the gym maybe 2 times, or they come to the gym and just crush themselves every time, and they haven't changed their body composition at all in a long time. And probably one of the biggest reasons is because of the amount of stress that causes. Dehydration, that's always important, getting enough water. What else? Gut imbalances, which probably also goes with food sensitivities, just not eating the right things for your body. So you really want to pay attention to, after you eat, how you're feeling. Certain foods you might not even realize that make you feel bad. Like personally, I love oatmeal. I'm never gonna stop eating it, but I also know it's not the greatest for me. Like I don't feel very good. I usually feel kind of gassy. It's just not the greatest for me, but I love it. So I try to eat it less, but I know it's not good. And you can usually tell, like if you eat a dinner and you're couch ridden for the next 2 hours because you're so tired and lethargic, like that meal probably wasn't the best for your gut. Right. And then environmental toxins, so that could be a lot of different things. Like we live in a farming community, so like it could be literal toxins in the ground and things like that, but it could also be just toxic people or toxic moods, and work environments tend to be toxic. Like you have to watch those and try to kind of distance yourself from the things that aren't good. That's the list that they had. I also kind of wanted to talk about a little bit about like self-talk, because this is one area that I find a lot of clients don't do well, is positive self-talk. Even a lot of clients like joke to themselves like, oh, I'm so fat, or like making fun of themselves, which is, it's a fun thing to do, and it shows that you're conscious of that, but it's also a negative thing because that causes more stress. Like you might think it's funny to let down and be like, oh, I can't do that sit-up because I'm too fat or something like that, and that's negative self-talk. Like you should be thinking of that in a positive way. Like you're in the gym trying to do sit-ups. Like that's a positive thing, not that you can't do it well. I also wrote down here like affirmations are great positive self-talk. So that positive stress is important. Like meditation and affirmations kind of go hand in hand. And if you like are somebody that can sit down and meditate even for like 2 minutes and think of a positive thought, it can be something as simple as I am here, I am okay, like I am safe, something like along those lines. Like positive self-talk, really, really important for our brains. And then I wrote down reframing your mindset. So if, like I kind of mentioned, if you're doing healthy things for yourself, think of that really positively, even if you're not doing great at it right now. Like that's still a great thing in our lives.
Yeah, I think going back to your self-talk, I think there's a huge difference between self-deprecating humor, which I think we can all appreciate at times, versus having low self-esteem. And that's the thing that we see in our clients a lot of times, is that they just don't have the confidence that you would want. But I'd like to go over some things about your diet that you actually mentioned. So we don't really think about it too much. We know that it's optimal to have good nutrition and good balance, but what we don't think about is the effects or from stress that our diet can actually have on us, like the high levels of cortisol from eating fun junk food, just like pleasure foods and stuff like that. So eating like processed foods that are high in sodium and saturated fats, especially those fats that maybe aren't saturated but they're like manufactured fats, right? All of those they take you out of homeostasis, which is basically just your inner balance, your body's ability to perform all of its functions in its best way, basically. And just to give you an example, like what some of the stress looks like, I think Bethany actually was the one that talked about most of that, but someone like, if they have a lot on their plate, let's say like they have a side gig outside of their 9 to 5, and they have a second job that they do part-time or whatever. Like my mom has a lot on her plate, which maybe she enjoys doing all that stuff, but she's overloading her yourself with stress, even if it's a positive stress, it's still just so much on her plate. And you see a lot of these things that were listed, like these signs of overload. She doesn't sleep well. She has high anxiety, I would say, and definitely like overeats, but her weight doesn't change, which is kind of a weird one. Like she's not gaining weight, but she's got it backwards. But just to give you a brief example. So, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so basically like when you're eating unhealthy foods, processed foods high in sugar, it's going to increase the inflammation in your body, which is a stressor. And it's going to actually kind of compromise those other systems from doing the best job that they can do, like you mentioned. And just to kind of put all this together, all these things that lead to stress, you can think of yourself like a bucket. So we're going to use an analogy of stress and how to reduce it. You are a bucket and stress is water filling into the bucket. The more stressors you have, the further the bucket's going to fill until eventually it's going to overflow, unless you can learn how to control and manage it. So for a lot of us, we don't even realize just how stressed out we are until it starts overflowing. And then all of a sudden we hit a wall, we have that grogginess, the brain fog, the mental fatigue, we can't sleep, we get hunger cravings, and we turn to sugars because it releases dopamine in our brain, which makes us temporarily feel good, but that leads to more stress, so it's kind of an endless cycle there. So what we need to do is we need to use what's called our tap at the bottom, or you can think of it like a drain that we can turn on and off. So what we would do is open up the tap, let some of that water out. That way we're reducing some of that stress, and then you're controlling the balance of your bucket. So there's always going to be some water in your bucket. That is normal, but what we want to do is make sure it doesn't overflow. So you need to adopt some of the things that we're about to show you to help control the amount that's in the bucket. So hopefully that makes sense. So some things that you can do to hopefully help overcome that is, for one, just eat healthier. So if you eat healthier foods, more whole foods that aren't processed and filled with sugar, that's going to help reduce inflammation in your body. Austin mentioned some really healthy berries, healthy fats such as avocado and eggs, nuts and seeds, eating a lot of vegetables and fruits just to get your vitamins and minerals in. That is going to help reduce inflammation in the body. Some other things that I personally do, and I'll have these guys chime in on some of the things that they do. I personally get a lot of stress relief from prepping and planning out my days. Not just my food, but this is my journal, and I fill it up day to day on things that I need to accomplish, I write down notes, I time everything out, so when am I going to be working on certain tasks throughout the day. I do this every night before I'm leading into the next day. So, if today's Friday, last night, I wrote down everything I need to do for today on a list, and then I mark it off as I go. So right now I can mark off Trainer Talk, because that's one of the things that I needed to do today. And that makes me feel good. You get a little hit of dopamine when you complete something. That helps reduce that stress level. Something else that I do, workout. So a lot of people know that working out makes you feel better. It actually does reduce, or it releases those endorphins, the dopamine and the serotonin that make you feel happy, make you feel good. That reduces your stress level. Even though working out itself is a stressor, it's a positive stressor like these guys are talking about. As long as you don't overdo it and you recover properly, you find that balance. Working out is absolutely amazing and one of the best antidepressants in reducing anxiety and reducing stress. So that's another thing that I do. Another thing I really make sure I'm doing is getting a really good night's sleep. So sleep is actually the number one best thing to filter stress and reduce stress. And unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword. So the more stressed out you get, the more it affects your sleep, and the less deep sleep and REM sleep you get, the more stress you have. So if you continue down that cycle of getting poor sleep and you build up your stress, it's just going to get worse and worse over time. So you really need to get a hold of this, try to reduce that stress, and make sure you're getting a good night's sleep and setting yourself up to get good rest. Another big thing for me, vitamin D and magnesium. He mentioned staying hydrated. You can't just drink water by itself. You actually need sodium, potassium, magnesium. Those are electrolytes. So I personally use pink Himalayan salt on a lot of my foods. It's filled with minerals and it's a good electrolyte. Also eat a lot of foods high in potassium, and I take a vitamin D supplement and a magnesium supplement as well. Vitamin D is actually just great for your immune system, and it actually reduces inflammation too. So that will help decrease stress, but just staying hydrated in general is another big one for me. So those are some of the things that I really try to do every single day. I have a few more, but I'll let these guys kind of chime in and let you know what they do. So
Yeah. You hit a lot of the good ones with like, planning out your day and everything. I also do want to make a point that like, just because one thing works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for another. It's like a stress management tool. Like I tried planning out my day, but it just like, I don't know, for some reason, just like having every hour planned out just doesn't work for me. Like I like having a list of like to-dos for the day, but not like planning out every minute of my day. Because if I like, for some reason I get bumped off the schedule, which usually happens, then that stresses me out more than it does good. So I just know that for myself, like while it works for Taylor, it doesn't really work for me, and that's completely fine. So something I try to do is always take time to myself, because I notice like there's like some signs that I look out for of when I'm like starting to get overstressed. Is like I try to distract myself constantly. Like I'll always have like a YouTube video playing in the background when I'm like at the house alone or something like that. Like I'm always like trying to distract my mind with something, so that's when I know that something's kind of off. So being aware of kind of like what your warning signs are for stress is a big one. So I focus more on like, meditation app or having quiet time where it's just, you with your thoughts, because then you can kind of trust your own intuition about how you feel and start to like listen to your inner voice of like, what is it telling me? What are my warning signs of like, what are these like symptoms that are going on, and like how can I change to like make everything at least improve for lowering stress and just living a happier, healthier life. I started like journaling either in the morning or at night. Some people do really good if it's like set, they do it every morning or they do it every night. For me, it's just like as long as I do it once in a day, then that's just better for me, since it's a little bit more flexible. My schedule tends to fluctuate. It just helps to you become aware of like what you're thinking about, things that you want to change, or like if you have like recurring thoughts or recurring worries, you can kind of like go into that, be aware of it, and then see, okay, so what kind of steps can I take forward to address it, or say like, oh, I'm lacking on my hydration, and maybe that's why I feel like I've got brain fog, or I'm always tired, or have all these like digestive issues, and that way you can kind of sit with yourself and just become aware of what's going on, and listen to what your body needs. I think that's like a big thing. People don't want to like slow down and just sit with themselves in silence, and it can be hard sometimes, but just finding a way for you to do that, whether it's a meditation app or journaling, and then you can kind of self-assess like what you need to do differently.
Yeah, those are great points. I think journaling and just writing things out is one of the best practices that you can do. Like no matter how small it is, or like Taylor plans out a lot, that's his way of de-stressing. I'm more with Bethany, to where I like to have my sessions and what I'm doing in that day class-wise, but I don't really like to plan out each hour, because I like to just leave time for any extracurriculars that I want to do. So that's important, but I also think one of the best things that you can do to help de-stress is reading. Reading's really stimulating for your brain. No matter what you're reading, I especially feel that way when I'm reading like fiction. Nonfiction and self-help books sometimes can like make me feel like I'm not doing enough. But I feel like when you get lost in a book in another world or in another setting, like that's really fun too. Also, meditation. She touched on that. Meditation's really, really beneficial, no matter how long it is. Even if you show up and do a minute, like a minute is way better than not doing it at all. And then I like to do yoga personally, and those two things kind of go hand in hand. And I always say the hardest thing is showing up. The hardest thing is getting out the mat, or the hardest thing is getting yourself in a quiet room to do some meditation practices. Other than that, though, I really enjoy walking and then like petting, playing with my dog. That's a really good de-stressor. You know, just trying to have good meals and good snacks too. That always tends to put me in a better mood. If I go and just eat like a bunch of Doritos versus if I go and eat a bunch of carrots, like I know where I'm at mentally, and I definitely can tell the difference and feel the effects differently.
Another point about playing with the dog and stuff, which I think companionship is a great way to fight off stress and bring those good endorphins into your life. But just to kind of recap a couple things that we talked about, so like relaxation and recovery, like Taylor mentioned. So like you need to get good sleep to properly recover from things like working out. Like obviously we're at gym, so we're going to talk about working out. But if you're not like recovering from those things, like you're just putting more, stress on your body really. And you need to relax and like find the time to like let yourself rest to just, well, like I said, recover. Now, small challenges and tasks give you a sense of accomplishment. So I think that's another good way to, you guys both said journaling. So that's something I definitely agree with. Working out and blowing off steam is a good outlet for stress. Like just blowing off steam, like I prefer kickboxing or just riding a bike for a little while, especially in like the warm months, when we can go outside and enjoy the sunlight. But I think what brings on more stress is when you procrastinate. So having that journal and planning out your day kind of takes off some of the load. Like if you're waiting until your last minute to, like sometimes I don't have a plan for a session. I don't do like an impromptu workout, which isn't like the best, but sometimes you have to make some changes too. So you have to leave yourself open, but have a general plan for what's going on. So
yeah, with the schedule, like even though like I'm writing out the majority of my day, I try not to overload it either, because that is another way to stress yourself out, is when you have too many things to do. So I'll find like 2 or 3 main things that I want to accomplish. Those are like my bullet point tasks, and I try to get them done first thing in the morning. So another tip that I had was like try to get a win as soon as you wake up, and that's why making your bed is such an important thing. Everybody's been told, make your bed when you wake up. That's because it actually gives you a little bit of a win, and it sets yourself up for the rest of the day. So if you can wake up and just accomplish something, whether it's doing something like making a bed or doing a chore or getting in a quick workout, or maybe it's just like making a good breakfast, maybe you read for a few minutes, or maybe you meditate for a few minutes before you start your day, maybe you journal your day in the morning. Like getting that small win will definitely help make you feel more accomplished. It releases that dopamine, those good feel-good hormones. And then you're just going to have a better day in general, and now hopefully it'll help keep that stress level down. We all know that when you start out your day in a rush, you snooze too many times, you're rushing out the door too late, you forgot something at home, all of a sudden the whole morning is just way more stressful. And then you think about all the things that you got to do when you get home constantly all day, even though those things might not actually take that much time, it's on your mind. So for me, if I just write down, I'm going to do this at this time, then at least I know I don't have to stress about it. I made the time for it. I actually put in time for myself. So these guys mentioned make sure you take a little bit of time for yourself. Like I've got 2 hours on here where I'll go home by myself, I eat lunch, and most of the time I'll take a little power nap. So power naps are another great way just to get a little recovery, refreshes your mind, so you kind of decrease a little bit of that brain fog, and it just makes me feel way better for the rest of the day. So that's something else that I'll do. And just making sure, like these guys mentioned, another just generic things that you can get started with is, have a little bit of a game plan of what you want to do day to day, but another good thing is like getting outside, getting some sunlight. So in the summertime, Getting that vitamin D. I mentioned I take a vitamin D supplement. During the summertime, I'm just trying to get outside more. So if you can just get outside more, that's one of the best ways to relieve stress. You just feel better being outside in nature, getting some fresh air, getting some sunlight. If you're somebody that works like a desk job, for example, if you're sedentary, try to make it a point to get up like every 30 minutes to an hour and just stand and stretch or walk around the office for a couple of minutes. Just moving your body can actually help you reduce inflammation and help kind of relieve some stress. And not to mention, you're just doing your body a favor by getting up and stretching out, which can lead to less joint pain and back pain and things like that. Making sure that you're setting a little bit of time for yourself. So whether that is going to the gym, or it is reading a book, or maybe you just watch your favorite show for 30 minutes or something like that. That's all going to be good things to help reduce that stress. So that's kind of what I had as far as some tips and tricks to get that started. Anything else you guys want to add to cap it off, or are we good? Good. So just to recap, our bodies are pretty much exactly the same as they were, hundreds of thousands of years ago when we got stressed because of immediate threats. Your body can't tell the difference. We deal with all kinds of stressors. That bucket of ours is filling with water. You need to take the time or come up with a strategy to open the tap, let some water out. So again, just working out, getting outside, planning your day, eating healthier foods, try to kick out the bad stuff. A really, really big one that a lot of people have a really hard time with is actually the environment. So the people you spend time with. Austin mentioned like he enjoys going on walks with his dog and playing with his dog. Whereas if you spend a lot of time with somebody that's a battery drainer or very toxic to you, maybe it's a friend of yours or you're in a bad relationship and it's constantly stressing you out, you need to really think about changing your relationships and maybe finding some friends that are going to influence you or charge your battery or make you feel better and happy, which is kind of a great thing about our gym community, to be honest, because like everybody here is here to improve themselves. They want to achieve whatever goal they have set for themselves. So they come here and they're generally more happy when they leave than when they come in. They feel great, they chit chat and talk with each other. So that's another great way to relieve stress, is just surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded. And that's kind of what we've tried to build here is our Fit Fam community. All of us coaches, we love working with people and getting together with our groups and clients to help them, not only relieve stress with their workout, but also they're surrounding themselves with people in that community that helps them outside of the gym too. So, if you ever want to stop in and check out the place if you're new, or if you are coming here and you are dealing with stressors outside of the gym, try out some of these tactics. Make sure you're just becoming aware of that stress and then open the tap and let it out. So take some time for yourself, try some of these things out. Hopefully this helps you guys. Make sure you subscribe and like, that way you can see our future videos. We'll also have a podcast version of it, so if you want to listen to this while you're driving to work or something like that, I will share the link. It's on Castbox, Taylor Hutchinson Fitness. It's the Trainer Talks channel. So until next time, you guys, stay healthy and practice managing your stress. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.